electric grills, pizza ovens, air fryers. Okay.
Which is something we've been asked for before and has been almost impossible to do.
Yeah. Petrol engine, not the diesel engine, the petrol engine.
Petrol engine.
For decades, we've been used to the noise of a combustion engine whilst on our adventures, whether that be the original Type 2, the Splitty, or a modern T6 transporter. Our adventures have always had that noise. We've been used to those smells of that petrol and diesel engines as we've been making our ways to our favourite campsites. And then when we've been on the campsites, we've been able to hear fellow campers around whilst they've been moving the petrol or diesel vehicles. We may also hear the sound of diesel heaters, ensuring that people stay warm when the temperatures drop. However, this will slowly start to fade away as new regulations come into force, restricting the sale of petrol and diesel vehicles. The industry is set for a huge shake-up, but what does the future look like? Personally, I'm really keen to see, and I'm quite excited about one of the options and some of the capabilities and new products which he's going to bring. Yet there is concern and some questions, and today we're going to talk about some of those and look at a new prototype camper. I'm also going to tell you about a camper van I'm going to be getting next week. There are a couple of parts to this video, and this next part was when I took a visit to Bespoke Leisure. We discussed some of the future and had a look at their new prototype in development. Today we're talking about the future of camper vans and what does that future look like. A lot of people are saying that electric isn't going to be it because there is a few problems which we'll talk about in today's video. But could this be the future? I know it is being highly regarded and highly talked about that it could potentially be. So we're going to discuss it and some of the benefits today and also what the electric is. So what is this? What have we got here?
So what we have here is one of the very latest Transits. It's the first of the PHEV, so the plug-in hybrid. So you can see in the front, we've got the plug-in lead that allows this to be plugged in like an electric vehicle. So we feel very much this is probably the compromise. So at the minute, there's discussions over resale value on electric vehicles, the range, if we add weight, things like the driving license required for that. Are we even going to be able to do it?
Yeah, because well, you've got that weight issue, haven't you? Because the weight of the vehicle is quite high anyway, and then by the time that you add that conversion into it, you're adding quite another lot of weight to it.
That's right, and you add in licenses like Payload and stuff as well. So Payload, the actual people. So we could end up with a vehicle on an electric one, which is very close to the limit, if not over. So it's quite prohibitive in what we can do, and also we've issues with how we mount seats through the floor and this sort of stuff as well. So there's lots of things there. So there is. So very much we feel, and from the feedback we've had at some of the larger shows we've been to, there's a want to go towards electric, but a fear of that as well. Yeah. So I suppose the plug-in hybrid is the sensible compromise. So this is still a development vehicle for us. We very much hope to have it ready to launch in October at the NEC show there. And it gives us kind of the best of both worlds is our feeling. So we've still got a reasonable amount of payload because it's got a smaller battery. And then obviously we've no concerns over range or charging or any of that sort of stuff with it.
Because even if it runs out of battery, you've got a petrol engine.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. So
petrol engine, not the diesel engine, the petrol engine.
Petrol engine. So yeah, so it's good. And some of the other things we want to do now with this vehicle, we're actually looking to potentially harness the use of this. So our thinking with this is it's got a big enormous battery built into it that's capable of giving us mains electric off it. So we're looking to try and create a new camper van for the future, something that maybe doesn't rely on gas anymore. So our hope is that we'll be able to cook and heat the van actually using the large battery, which is the already on the underside of the vehicle. Yeah, so it's on the underside in the middle here. So large battery in here, as it's not required exclusively for the drivetrain on this one. It means we don't have to worry about killing off the range, even if we were to run this down really low or empty. Starting up the vehicle, plugging the vehicle back in, this will give us the charge back into it. So it's still at an experimental point, but we've added in parts to this vehicle that allow us to harness the power at a mains level. So it's the equivalent of having several lithium leisure batteries and you know, massive inverters already
Yeah.
part of the fabric of the vehicle.
Because at the moment, a lot of people are doing the kind of the gas-free conversions, and they're using a power system. They're using portable power stations in some cases,
Yeah.
or these big lithium power sources,
Yeah.
which you obviously use when you're doing your crafters.
Yeah.
But this is much bigger,
Yeah.
and I mean that's a massive battery. How long would that last? Presumably days.
We don't know without proper testing, but I would have said days,
Yeah.
days, and with the ability to offload it. So we can, for example, have like an air fryer running off this battery, without obviously needing to start engines or worry about the stuff like that. We'll also have a traditional lithium battery in there to run all the 12-volt stuff, and this will charge in the normal way. But really, to use this sort of part of this vehicle and actually use it as an advantage for the campervan market is what we want to do with this vehicle. And being the hybrid rather than being the full electric, we have more room at the back here, so things like the mounting of the seat are not affected, so we can actually still mount the seat in the normal way using our normal installation frame. We're still able to do that because actually this section of the vehicle here is pretty much as it was.
Should we go and have a look inside the vehicle?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. So this is another one of the prototype vehicles where we've been making some other little changes to this. So on this, you can see the original gas hob and so on. So the idea with the hybrid one is that we'll not have this as our normal layout. So instead, we'll be looking at things like induction hob, maybe even other built-in appliances. We need to see what becomes available in the market and if there's other new things that we can bring to this new van. Okay. So we're on the lookout for all new bits and pieces. Also, where we traditionally use like a gas tank and a gas heating system, that's not the plan anymore. So we want to look at some way of heating it like electrically. So we want to use some sort of a heat exchanger or electric heating type system. There may even be some opportunity that we could have one of them that did like aircon as well. So there might be, in theory, a way of having hot and cold, okay, which is something we've been asked for before, and has been almost impossible to do because you can't really do a roof-mounted air conditioner on this type of
battery.
Yeah, big massive battery, and the ability, because all the aircon type units, all the ones you see in your traditional motorhomes, they all rely on mains power for that. So it's easy enough for them to work when you're hooked up, but we want this to work off grid also. Yes. So if there's some way we can do that, that's the sort of things we're looking at. This may not all come to market, but this is our opportunity at this point to see, can we make that work, and can we test that, and we'll run a testing program. So we'll try and get these different things to work in this vehicle between now and its launch time.
So as far as weight's concerned in this, the weight isn't an issue. The heating has always been that question where people say, well, if I've not got my diesel, then I'm not going to be able to use my diesel heater. Yeah. Some people's response is, well, you can use a separate diesel tank. Yeah. But that kind of defies the whole point of actually doing it. Yeah. So doing it that way, using that big battery, then that's actually really going to be the answer. Yeah, it is.
There's not a lot of products in the market yet. We wouldn't want to be using something like an electric heater you would have in your house, something with like a glowing red bar in it. So we need to look at something, but we're looking to, if you look at something like an ID Buzz, the sort of the way that they heat the electric, or any electric car, where you've got, it's using an electric ability through like a heat exchanger to create the hot air on a cold day. So that's the sort of thing we're sort of looking at for these vans. So we don't want to go down the traditional route of a gas or a diesel heater. Diesel tank wouldn't be something we wouldn't be happy to be doing. You do get petrol heaters, so that is another option. So it is. Again, we'd rather not do that, but all them things are on the cards.
We're trying to move away from all that kind of stuff.
We're trying to move away from the whole fossil fuel idea, and I certainly, as I say, this is hopefully a stepping stone to electric in the future. Where it's a bit away, if we look at what some of the Chinese manufacturers are doing at the minute, things are coming on there, so it's not a never say never. We just have to see how it works out.
But again, it comes back to when you've got that bigger battery, that full electric, is what are the weight implications going to be? Yeah. And what are people actually going to be able to drive?
Exactly. So this gives us the halfway house with this. These have quite a good, they're a 3.2 ton chassis, so we've got still a good amount of payload available to us to work with. So it really does give us that opportunity to try and make it work.
Yeah. A PHEV, a PHEV, a PHEV, or whatever you want to call it, a campervan has already hit the market. And next week, I'm going to test this out. Volkswagen's latest campervan, when I hire the new T7 California. This is the first hybrid camper van from Volkswagen, and I'm going to take a look, test it out, and see what it's like on a few different levels. I plan to take it to the best campsite in the UK. That is obviously subjective, but this one was voted the best. So I'm going to talk about that. How much is it to stay there? You can tell me what you think of the price when I talk about it next week. And spoiler alert, it certainly is not cheap. Certainly a lot more than I thought it was going to be. But we can talk about that next week or maybe the week after. But back to the vans. And VW aren't only making the plug-in hybrid California, they are making a new transporter, which is plug-in hybrid, and I'm going to call it PHEV, and I'm really keen to see this develop. It's without doubt one of the most I'm personally interested in, although it's not actually released in the transporter format till 2026, so I'm going to have to wait for that. But there is the Ford Transit plug-in hybrid, which is here now, and no doubt you're going to be seeing several of those around. I'm going to be showing you some of those developments on this channel as and when I can. And additionally, VW have introduced the battery electric vans, and we've already seen the original Splitty reborn as the ID Buzz, and now it's been even improved with a long wheelbase and the bigger battery option. A van I'm going to be testing hopefully later on this year. And I did that 1,000 mile test in the original Buzz, and I'm going to be trying this new one to see if it's been improved, especially from that range perspective. Also now, Volkswagen have introduced the all-new electric transporter, a new one, not the ABT T6.1. This one has a bigger battery and a lot more range, although that wouldn't particularly be difficult over the last one. All electric vans are improving, but they are extremely heavy, and adding a camper van conversion on top, it could take them over the current weight limit that many people are actually able to drive on the driving licenses. But that's perhaps a conversation for another day. Maybe that is another video. These new models are going to be a lot more common, and perhaps you're going to choose one for the project build which we've got. And if you haven't seen that, that's where we're actually going to be learning about all the various different aspects of building a camper van. And then you're going to choose one and we're going to build it. I'm going to be introducing the converters that are going to be involved in that in the next few weeks. It really is going to be extremely educational for you and a really, really fun project. What really will be exciting and really interesting aspects of these new vans of the future, though, will be the new products and the gadgets. We could be in for a huge shake-up, as I've mentioned before, and far more than just a camper van itself. Our household kitchen gadgets like coffee machines, electric grills, pizza ovens, air fryers may become more common in our camper vans as the battery capacity which we've got increases because we're able to use the main vehicle battery. We'll be able to use air conditioning units that some big camper vans and motorhomes have now from companies like Truma, which we'll be able to use even whilst we're not on hookup. New types of heating systems that aren't commonly used in camper vans now, and I'm going to see a whole host of new other products. Many of us love our toys and gadgets, and we will be in for a real treat with this big influx of new ones which we've got coming to the market. Exciting times for sure. There really is a lot going on. So lots of prototypes going on, lots of development, but you've got to look to the future, aren't you? Because it will soon be here.
It'll come up on us, and there is a demand in the market for it. People are, as you'll know, more and more electric cars are on the road, like it or dislike it. That's the way we're going. So we have to see how can we evolve our industry to try and start to align with that. We're always going a bit behind the mainstream motor manufacturers, but this is the start of that opportunity to do that. And at the minute, though we're basing it on the Ford hybrid we're talking about here, I believe there'll be a Volkswagen equivalent of that coming out within the next 12 months as well. So that would transfer across also.
Hopefully, relatively simply.
Yeah, should very much be the same product, we hope.
But yeah, it's good to see that you look into the future, like I know a lot of companies are doing at the moment with the gas-free vans, which there are a lot of now.
Yeah.
But like I say, they're generally using the big capacity lithium.
Yeah.
So using the vehicle battery in itself, well, not only is it going to free up space, but it's a much bigger battery as well. So
it's just the capacity there is massive. Yeah, we just have to see, is it something we can actually do? So we're confident we're making good inroads into it, but there's no guarantees at this point. No. So there's not. So.
But there's certainly some openings in the market if any manufacturers want to start developing some new products
Yeah.
for the electric or hybrid vehicles. Yeah, there's definitely an opening there.
Yeah, yeah, there's something. We'd like to see some new change and some new step forward. If we look at what we've been doing in the campervan market, probably for the last 20 years, it's very similar.
Very
So,
samey, isn't
yeah,
it?
it is. We've been making little improvements and certainly big leaps forward on things like safety and so on. But you know, this is the point where we can start to bring the technology up to the new way of thinking.
Great. Well, thanks for that.
No bother. Thank you.
So what do you think then? The future, do you think it is full electric? Or do you think something like a plug-in hybrid is the way forward? Personally, I think this is something that can't be overlooked because it is the best of both worlds until we are forced down that potential full electric route. Anyway, if you haven't seen any of my other campervan videos, then you can have a look at those here. Thanks for watching, take care, and I hope to see you soon.